Welcome to Beyond You, the podcast where we dive deep into healing, rediscovery, and the building the life you truly deserve. I'm Samantha, your host and guide on this journey. If you're ready to move past toxic relationships, reconnect with your true self, and create authentic connections, you're in the right place. We'll be having real conversations, sharing practical tips, and offering the kind of support that helps you just not survive, but thrive. Each week, we're unpacking how to heal from the past, rediscover who you are, and building a future that feels like you. So whether you're just starting your healing journey or been on the path for a while, let's do this together. Let's get started. Hey everyone, I'm so glad you're here because today we're diving into something I know many of you have struggled with, recognizing toxic patterns in your relationships and figuring out how to break them. If you've ever found yourself asking, why do I keep ending up in the same type of relationship? Or why does this always happen to me? Then this episode is for you. Today, we're going to explore how to spot these patterns, why we're drawn to them, and what steps we can take to break free. This isn't about blame or judgment, it's about awareness and growth. So let's get started. And can I just say thank you, because I've gotten such great feedback about the podcast, and I love hearing your comments and feedback about what we can do to make it really resonate with you. So just thank you from the bottom of my heart. Please share, please like, please follow, so we can continue to get to those that really need this information and really recognize toxic patterns in relationships, so we can really get you guys feeling at peace just within yourselves in your everyday life. So first, we're going to talk about recognizing common toxic patterns. And I know I've talked about this quite a bit, but I wanted something that you can always kind of figure out and see and go back to each time. So first, let's talk about what toxic patterns actually look like. These can be cycles of behavior that feel familiar, right? And even if they're not healthy, maybe you're always the one giving more in the relationship, or you find yourself constantly walking on eggshells to avoid conflict. Maybe it's the pattern of being drawn to partners who can't fully commit or who don't treat you with the respect you deserve and are worthy of. I once worked with a client who noticed that every relationship she had seemed to follow the same script. And I know we all went through this before. She would meet someone, they'd start off great, but over time she felt neglected and ignored. She was always the one trying to fix things, and it left her feeling drained and unappreciated. It wasn't until she recognized this pattern that she could start making changes. So know that these patterns often come from a place of comfort. Ironically, even if that comfort isn't healthy. So it's like our brains are wired to repeat what feels familiar because at one point it was what we knew. So the good news is once you recognize these patterns, you have the power to change them. So I want you to start by reflecting on your past relationships and looking forward for common themes were then similar dynamics, arguments, or feelings that kept coming up. And what I want you to do is I want you to write down what you notice. Even if it feels small or disconnected, like really paying attention to what it looks like. So I can even talk about, for me, before relationships, with my current partner, I would constantly meet people who were just emotionally unavailable. So no, you're not alone in this, right? And I think it was this common theme of, with it growing up, sometimes parents were emotionally unavailable. And so it just led to me feeling as though that this is just what I connected with was common, for the time. And I know that a lot of you guys resonate with being first generation, with a Caribbean household, or even just being the one that's kind of breaking the cycles. It just, you see the common themes, right? If something, when it comes to being avoidant, if you find yourself constantly avoiding arguments within the house where that's what you saw growing up, you're going to find this common theme within your relationships if you don't really recognize it. So really write the common situations down so we can kind of see exactly what that is. So then we want to know, number 2, why we fall into the same patterns. So why do we keep finding ourselves in the same types of relationships? A big part of this is rooted in our past experiences. If you grew up in an environment where love felt conditional, chaotic, or distant, you might unconsciously seek out relationships that mimic that experience. It's not because you want to be unhappy. It's because it feels familiar, and familiarity can feel safe, even when it's not. And I remember speaking with someone who realized that every partner they chose reminded them in some way of a parent who was emotionally unavailable, which I talked about. I felt the same way earlier in this podcast. They didn't see it at first, but once they made the connection, it was like a light bulb went off. They weren't choosing these partners because they wanted the pain. They chose them because they were subconsciously trying to win the approval they never got growing up. Right? And that's why when we just have emotionally unavailable partners, this keeps happening, right? We're like, okay, if they can find themselves seeing me, then we feel like we have a win, like winning their approval and showing, okay, this person's going to care about me, when it's kind of keep having the same cycle within them. So understanding why we repeat these patterns is key to changing them. It's like peeling back the layers to see what beliefs are driving your choices. Maybe it's the belief that you don't deserve better, right? Or that love has to be hard to be real, or what we have been doing constantly, this feeling of this struggle love that keeps coming up constantly. These beliefs can shape the way we show up in relationships and who we choose to let in. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a moment to think about what beliefs you might be carrying that contribute to these patterns. Do you believe you have to prove you're worthy to be loved? Like I have quite a bit of clients, even one I spoke with yesterday. Do you feel like you have to earn your love, right? If you keep going with people who are you feel like they're challenging, or the emotional unavailable piece, and if you grew up in a household where it seemed to be very conditional, like if you were good, then you get all the love, but if you were bad, it was taken away, then that can make you feel like you have to constantly earn love and just feel like you have to over give or do more to keep the person around. Understand when it comes to love, you just simply have to be. It's not that you have to earn somebody's love. Like when you were a baby, you hopefully were in a space where you were loved just because of who you are. You didn't have to earn that, and you don't have to earn the love currently. So really think about what that is, what that belief you're holding on to is. Do you feel like you need to fix others to be valuable in their eyes? Really think about this. Recognizing these beliefs is the first step in shifting them. So now that we kind of got why we feel these patterns are here, I really want us to take the steps to start breaking these toxic patterns. I really want to break down a little bit more on what you can do. So okay, we recognize the patterns, understanding why they happen. So let's start breaking into what that looks like. So know that change does not happen overnight, but with intention and effort, you can start shifting these patterns. So one of my clients decided that her first step would be to practice setting boundaries, something she had never done before. It felt uncomfortable at first. She worried that people would think she was being too much. But over time, she saw that the right people respected her boundaries, and that saying no didn't mean she was pushing people away. It meant she was making space for healthier connections. And I really want to ingrain that into you, that boundaries is the most loving thing that you can do. You heard me say this time and time again within my videos, in just working with me one-on-one, within my programs. You will understand that you are never being too much. Like you saying your boundaries is the most loving thing, because you're saying, okay, for us to be in a relationship, this is what I need from you, right? And so it's just loving that you're letting someone know this about yourself. So step one is awareness. You already done this by recognizing your patterns and the beliefs driving them. So when you are aware of this, it's going to be huge, right? As we wrote a lot of these things down, because the first step in breaking toxic patterns is understanding what those patterns actually are. You can't change what you don't see. Start by reflecting on your past relationships like you've written down before, and really think about what dynamics seem to repeat. Are you always the one overgiving? Do you find yourself drawn to emotionally unavailable people, like we talked to before? Or maybe it's a pattern of conflict that feels all too familiar. So I wanted to give an example for these. So let's say you notice that in every relationship, you're the one always initiating communication. You're texting first, planning all the dates, and carrying the emotional load. Realize that that is a pattern. Once you see it, you can start asking why it happens. Maybe you've been taught that your worth is tied to how much you do for others. Recognizing this is the key to start breaking the cycle and knowing how to do something differently. So what I want you to do, I'm going to make these actionable exercises if you're able to, or you just kind of save this one for later. I want you to take a piece of paper and divide it into 3 columns. Okay? I want you to list your past relationships in the first column. Write down any repeating dynamics or behaviors you notice, and then reflect on how those patterns made you feel. So 1 with a list of your past relationships, dynamics that you see repeating, and how these patterns made you feel. This exercise will help you give you a clear picture of the cycles you're working to break. Okay, so next is step 2 when it comes to your boundaries or reclaiming your energy. So with this, right, and I want you to start setting small boundaries to protect your emotional energy. This could be as simple as not answering a call from someone who drains you or saying no when you need time for yourself. And I know that we've talked about this in previous podcasts as well, but toxic patterns often thrive in the absence of boundaries. Okay, I'm going to say this again. Toxic patterns often thrive in the absence of boundaries, where people can take advantage of your time, energy, or emotions. So know that boundaries are your way of saying, this is where I end and you begin. And I've been saying this time and time again. It's about protecting your peace. So I want to give another example for this. So I want you to imagine you have a friend or partner who constantly calls you at all hours to vent, but never ask how you're doing. And we've all had the situation. I mean, I just had the situation last year. A boundary here might look like saying, I care about you, but I can't take calls late at night anymore. Let's plan a time to talk during the day instead. Setting this boundary can feel uncomfortable. I get it. This is new and different for you, but it's a way of teaching others how to treat you. Okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to think of one relationship where your boundaries feel blurry. What's one small change you could make to protect your energy? Write it down and practice saying it out loud to yourself. For example, I need to take some time for myself tonight, so I can't make it to dinner. Practicing helps you feel more confident when it's time to communicate. Okay, so you have step 1, your awareness. Step 2, boundaries reclaim your energy. And boundaries are going to repel any narcissist or toxic behavior from a parent or partner. This is what's going to help. Next, what I want you to do, step 3, is I want you to reframe your beliefs and challenge the story you're telling yourself. Challenge what we call the narrative. Many toxic patterns are rooted in limiting beliefs about ourselves and or relationships. Maybe you believe you have to work hard to earn love, which we talked about earlier, or that you're not worthy of being treated well. These beliefs can shape the choices you make and the people you allow into your life. So to break this cycle, you need to challenge those beliefs. For example, if you've always believed that love is about sacrificing your need for others, start asking yourself, what if love is about mutual respect and care? What if I'm allowed to have needs met too? Reframing these thoughts creates space for healthy relationships and dynamics between you and other people. So what I want you to do is I want you to write down one belief and let me know below either beliefs, the boundaries you're going to be holding. Like, I want to hear, and we can all be able to kind of just share exactly what that is for you. So write down one belief that might be driving your patterns. Then write an alternative belief that's healthier and more empowering. So I'll just give you a little example. My old belief could be, if I don't keep the peace, they'll leave me. And then I'm going to change it and shift my new belief to be, healthy relationships don't require me to suppress my needs to keep someone around. And I want you to keep this new belief somewhere visible as a reminder. You know, I have little different Post-its, around my computer when I need that. Like, you have one for yourself. It could be in the background screen of your phone. And I usually share, a weekly, background phone screen just to have an affirmation with you in my email list. There's ways to be able to download that within the show notes, description notes. You can be able to make your own and create your own as well. So have it visible, where posted, background screen of your phone, just somewhere that you can see it. Step 4, I want you to make small intentional changes. Break the cycle one step at a time. Breaking patterns does not mean you have to overhaul your entire life overnight. It's about making small intentional changes in how you show up in relationships. So let's just say you're always the one who says yes to plans, even when you're exhausted. So notice a small change might be practicing saying, I can't today, but I'd love to meet up another time. This one shifts allow you to prioritize your well-being without feeling guilty. Know that I know when, especially as former people pleaser, or if you're dealing with people pleasing now, I get it. And just saying no can feel hard. And so we can have ways where we can say no differently. Whether it's like mentioned before, I can't make it today, but maybe next Saturday, or I can't make it today. You have a good time though. Let me know how it goes. Like there's different ways to be able to show up and yes, say no to things that don't feel good for you. So I want you to think of one small change you can make in your daily interactions. It could be saying no when you need rest, asking for what you want, or letting someone else take the lead for once. I want you to start small and build from there. And know that you can get support. Step 5 is get support. You don't have to do this alone. Finally, breaking toxic patterns is hard work. You do not have to do it by yourself. Whether it's leaning on a trusted friend, joining a support group, or working with a therapist, having people in your corner can make all the difference. I've worked with someone who felt stuck in a cycle of choosing emotionally unavailable partners, and I've went through that as well. I've been letting you guys know that. Once she started therapy, she realized that these patterns was tied to childhood experiences where she had to chase love. With support, she learned to recognize red flags early and set boundaries that protected her peace. And I get it that like there's nobody that talks about this stuff to us while growing up. And I'll be creating something in January for us to have a community to have that support for one another, to just have this community with you and have these information with you, things that we were not taught when we were little. So look forward to that coming. But know that you can be able to really listen to yourself on what just doesn't feel right for you, and know that having support, whether it's a trusted friend in this moment, to just be there for you during that time, or let you know like, no, that's not okay. But people that you trust, right? People that you can be able to come to. If you have a question, let me know down in the comments and I can make sure to answer your question as well. But I want you to ask yourself, who can I turn to for support right now? Is it a friend who's a good listener, a coach, or a therapist? Write down one step you can take to reach out for support this week while you're going through this and really trying to recognize and do something different for yourself. So what I want us to do is let's do a quick just visualization. If you just taken just a couple minutes to do this for yourself. So let's do a quick visualization to help you imagine breaking a toxic pattern. So I want you to close your eyes if you can and take a deep breath. Picture yourself standing on a path with a fork in the road. One path leads to the same old cycles. It feels familiar but heavy. The other path is new. It's brighter, lighter, and full of possibility. Now imagine yourself stepping onto the new path. It might feel uncertain at first, but as you keep walking, you notice how much lighter you feel. Each step represents a small change, a boundary you set, a belief you challenge, or a moment where you can choose yourself. Let that feeling of possibility sink in. This is the path you're creating for yourself. I just want you to take a moment and breathe into that. So I just want to let you know what those steps were for yourself, so you can be able to kind of just take this with you and allow yourself to just be there for you. Remember, you have the power to let go of what no longer serves you and to choose what aligns with your peace and growth. So here's what I hope you take from today's episode. Recognizing the toxic patterns is a first step toward breaking them. Number 2, understand why these patterns happen so you can start to change them. Number 3, practice setting boundaries and reframe your beliefs to shift the way you show up in relationships. And this week, you can just start picking just one actionable step to try out. Maybe it's journaling about an old pattern, setting a small boundary, or practicing self-awareness when you feel triggered. Take it slow and be gentle with yourself. It's all part of the process. If today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone you might need to hear it too. And if you're ready to take your healing journey further, don't forget to download my 7-day Feel Free to Heal journal. And I had that out in the notes, bit.ly/FTH journal. It's designed to help you rediscover yourself, tune into your true needs, and start building relationships that are healthy and supportive. And check out my free guide on the signs of emotional unavailability to help you identify unfulfilling relationship patterns and create stronger connections. So thank you so much for joining me on Beyond You today. Remember, recognizing and breaking toxic patterns is a journey, but with each step you take, you're moving closer to the relationships and life you truly deserve. Next week, we're going to talk about rebuilding trust after betrayal, how to trust yourself and others again after being hurt. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss out. Until next time, take care of yourself. You're worth it.